Hello my quilting friends, Leah Day here with a new collaboration video. I just received this beautiful mini quilt from Sheri at Whole Circle Studios. And this is a version of her roadwork quilt. So you can make a really big one or you can make a little one like this. It's so cute. So I'm going to figure out how to quilt it. It's kind of a challenge because it kind of looks like a road, and that has been a little overwhelming for me. I can't seem to see past that. So I've been doing a lot of sketching, a lot of thinking, a lot of designing. I think I've got a pretty cool idea for how to quilt this little quilt. So let's get started. So here is the roadwork quilt, and I've been drawing on the surface, just planning out my design. And of course, the most obvious design would be straight line quilting. You've got all of these linear elements, the obvious, yellow lines of the road. This is kind of what a crosswalk looks like. Lots of bold straight lines. And I really want to play on that because that is, I think that quilting texture should balance with and accent your piecing. It should also add that little extra something that you don't get in the piecing. So the only thing that I'm going to add extra is some curving lines. So we're going to have straight lines radiating out for a good couple of inches, and then right at the end they'll go into curves. And I think I can do this with my ruler foot. Use my ruler as a guide up to a point, then just go off in free motion and wiggle around and kind of be wild and crazy. And on this side, so this side's only going to have about 5 to 6 inches of curves. On this side, I think I'm going to bring it down and have a few more inches of curves and then go into straight lines right at this end. So planning this out, it's a little scary. I don't want to mess up Sheri's cute quilt and of course this awesome effect that we've got going on here. I think this is going to balance with it. It's mostly going to be straight lines. I think it's going to look great. So let's get on the machine and see how this works in free motion. So I've taken some time to get started. I've already quilted 1/2 of this quilt, and I want to just talk you through what I've done. So I've stitched in the ditch through the middle, through these yellow bars. I stitched in the ditch around these shapes and the white sidebar over here, and then began quilting the straight lines into the curves. And this was a little bit tricky, and I've got to say it's a testament to how good Sheri is at piecing, because quilting on a 1/4 inch scale and having the lines this perfectly broken down, when you're off with your piecing, it really shows up. So she did an amazing job piecing this quilt, and I was so delighted to see that because it allows me to really magnify that, to really show off her piecing skills by doing this quilting design. So now I'm working on my straight lines and I'm going to go into a curve. So these are really a kind of a short straight segment and then go into a much deeper curve. I really like that effect, and just playing with this, the little bit that I have in this quilt, I think this is going to look great. So I start straight. Now I'm going to move my ruler away because I want to think curvy. And now I'm just basically going into normal free motion quilting. So I'm just going to stitch this curve, and I'm trying to maintain nice, steady pace with my hands, so nice even stitches. I have a marked line here, and it doesn't matter if I stay on that marked line or not. This is just, it's basically a foundation. It's an idea of how to get started, but I don't have to stick with it if I don't want to. Okay, so travel stitched over just a bit. And I'm going to echo this line a 1/4 inch away. So now I'm just using the edge of the foot, and the ruler foot is really unique. It gives you exactly a 1/4 inch to all sides, all the way around of the needle. And that means that I can just put the edge of that foot on that curving line and focus on that as I stitch that echo. Now, of course, I'm going to run up right against that line. And so I'm going to travel stitch down, trying to stay right on top of the line, trying to keep my line nice and straight. And I'm going to keep travel stitching until this point, until the edge of my foot comes back in line with that curving line. I'm saying line a lot, I feel like. It's one of those things, just something as small as this, just doing curving lines and straight lines. It's amazing the effects that you can get. It's very modern in feel, And, you know, but at the same time, I think it really accents the piecing of this quilt. So now I've grabbed my ruler, and this is one of my templates from the Dresden Plate template set, and there's lines etched on the back. And so I am lining this up with that seam line. I want that to be nice and straight. I'm pressing down on the template. I'm pressing it against my foot, and that's helping me maintain a nice straight line all the way down. So here I'm lining it up with that stitching that I've already done, pressing firmly down. I don't want that ruler to slip. That's what's keeping that line nice and straight. I'm gonna roll up the block again and stitch over. And I'm just doing this travel stitching right along that edge of the quilt. That's going to get covered up with binding at one point, so I don't have to worry about being messy here on the edge. So now I'm going to line up my ruler again. This time I'm lining up both with previous stitching and with that ditch. Anytime that I can use ditches, I like to use ditches because if that line is way off, you know, if it was more than a quarter or less than a quarter inch away from that stitching, from that ditch, that's going to be a little bit more noticeable that it's off, simply because your eye's going to catch it. So I'm being careful to stay in line, and I can double check myself. I can also move it to this side and also double check that my foot is centered up to that ditch as well. So it's kind of cool. You can use these rulers to double check yourself and make sure that your foot is in the right location, and that can help you maintain nice, even, accurately spaced lines too. So this line, I'm going to basically just run that echo right up against that previously stitched line. And I have a lot of choices. I could break thread here, or I could travel stitch down and fill in this space with more echoing lines. I think that's what I'm going to do. So careful travel stitching here. I usually travel stitch without the ruler, even though I am quilting, in this case, straight lines, simply because I feel like that forces me to pay more attention and not trust the ruler, because I could get off with it. But, you know, play with it. See what works best for you. I do set the ruler aside whenever I'm quilting the curves, just to remind myself that I'm echoing and quilting without the ruler. If I keep the ruler in my hand, I tend to want to use it. So here I'm stitching down, trying to maintain a nice, consistent echo. I'll travel stitch over, and the only thing that I'm doing to gauge these echoes is I'm just looking at the edge of the foot. I'm just lining up that foot with that previous line of stitching. And notice my pace. I'm not really speeding through this. I'm not stitching super fast. I'm not moving the quilt very fast either. It's slow and steady work, and when I travel stitch, I definitely slow down quite a lot to maintain good control over those stitches. And the last thing you want to do is just go really messy on a pretty quilt like this. I am playing around with a slightly different thread. You might have noticed this thread is much thinner than my normal thread. This is Alex Anderson's Quilter Select thread, and it's a gray color, and I just decided to give it a try, and I think it's looking really good. This is 80 weight thread, so it is super, super thin. And as you can see, it makes a little bit less of an impact on the quilt surface, but I think it looks really, really nice. Sometimes a thinner thread is going to give you a more subtle texture. It's going to blend in with the fabric just a little bit more. I think that came out really good. So now let me show you how I'm basically going to be stitching from here on out. I'm basically going to start at the top. I'm going to echo this curving line all the way down to the point where it goes straight. And I'm kind of marked a very light guideline for where it should change from a curving line to a straight line. But, you know, it might change. It might adjust as I add more echoes. I noticed on the opposite side that gradually that spacing kind of changed as I stitched on down. So now I'm in the straight away area. I'm going to grab my ruler, stitch that straight line. I'm going to travel stitch along the top of this little rectangle, this little white rectangle, just careful travel stitching. And then I really do like the block, that whatever my stitching line is, I like it to face me so that way I can see what I'm doing. I know that I'm working in free motion. I could just quilt backwards, but I want to be able to see. So that's why I'm constantly rotating. And so now I'm stitching the straight line, set my template aside, and go back into the curve. So that's the motion, that's the set of steps that I'm going to be taking. I really hope that you've enjoyed learning how I quilted this beautiful quilt. And here's what it looks like whenever I finished Sheri's roadwork quilt. So that's it for this video. I really hope that you enjoyed seeing how I quilted this little roadwork mini quilt. If you'd like to make one too, you can find the pattern at Sheri's website, wholecirclestudios.com. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel on YouTube so you don't miss the next video coming out soon. Until next time, let's go quilt!